The Burmese pythons overpopulating the Everglades of Florida, owners being attacked by their pet tigers, lionfish dissipating coral reefs of the Atlantic Ocean. These are just some of the unfortunate cases the exotic pet trade has made for the animals, the pet owners, and the environment they are in. With the demand for exotic pets being on the rise now more than ever, it is crucial that we understand the consequences and procedures that need to be taken when dealing with a wild animal. Within this documentary, you will see just how important it is to take care of an exotic pet, as well as people who are intrigued to own one know what they're getting themselves into when thinking about purchasing one. An exotic pet can refer to any wildlife kept in human households or simply to a pet that's more unusual than the standard dog or cat. This means anything from turtles, frogs, and snakes to the more extreme species such as lions, monkeys, and wild macaws. While having these animals at first may seem fun and exciting, the ultimate issue is they are dangerous and wild. Another factor about the exotic pet trade is the process of which these animals have to go through in order to get to our houses is not always a fun one. There is a very high mortality rate for these animals that are cramped in small boxes or cages, so for every bird or small mammal that makes it to a home or pet store, many will die along the way. Now, this isn't to say every exotic animal being sold is transported this way, but when they make it to your door or pet shop, they are subjected to cages and tanks instead of being in the wild, adapting to their own natural environment. Large cats have their teeth filed down and are declawed, while parrots have their wings clipped so they cannot fly away. It is recorded that every day, more and more animals are taken from the rainforest than being introduced to, and with the high demand for exotic pets, this can lead to rapid species extinction. Another major concern about the exotic pet trade are the possibilities that happen when these exotic pets get too big or strong for us to handle anymore, and how this affects the animals and their surroundings. The main concern about the environment and the exotic pets is that when these animals are released into an environment they are unknown to, they become invasive to that area. The National Invasive Species Council defines an invasive species as an organism whose introduction does or is likely to cause economic or environmental harm or harm to human health. When a species becomes invasive to an environment, it can have a negative impact on it that can cost billions of dollars to that state. If these animals escape, any of them could end up wreaking havoc on native ecosystems and contributing to the $120 billion worth of environmental damage that non-native species cause in the United States each year. For us to get a better understanding about how these exotic pets can affect the environment, I interviewed senior park naturalist Jason Hoger of the Caddis Island County Park in Toms River, New Jersey. Jason is an expert on the species at Caddis Island and had a lot to say about an invasive species that has made its way to the park, known as the red-eared slider.
Well, one of the main invasive species that we have identified in the park would be red-eared sliders.
Okay.
So there's a spot in the southwestern part of the park of Caddis Island where there's a drainage that comes from the local development, and then it drains into Caddis Island, and actually our boardwalk runs along there. And that seems to be one of the main spots that we would find red-eared sliders.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally you'll find 3 or 4 in that area, and you can definitely see them interacting with the painted turtles.
Okay.
Typically, you only see them on warmer days. I'm not sure whether they have a breeding population that's sustaining them there, or whether they were just a few that were let go at one point and they just happen to continue to survive there. It's not really, even as it is just a few turtles, it does have an impact on the environment. Certainly they compete directly with other native species, primarily the eastern painted turtle. The impact that 2 or 3 turtles have is probably low, even though it is an impact.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly, if it was a breeding population, that would be a huge impact.
After interviewing Jason, it became clear to me that there was a great possibility these red-eared sliders were introduced to Caddis Island due to pet owners releasing them because of the location of where they were found. After speaking with Jason, I felt I needed more answers. I contacted Bruce Crawford, the director of Rutgers Gardens, to ask a few questions about invasive species making their way to the area and if it was a problem for them, and this is what he had to say.
We're not so much impacted by animals as we are by invasive plants. but it's not necessarily a pet, but what people have been doing is have a heart traps. So they'll bring them here with woodchucks and then release them, thinking that, okay, we're saving the woodchuck.
After speaking with Bruce, I came to the conclusion that New Jersey had more invasive plants than animals, and I felt I needed more answers. Since we do not have year-round warm weather, it is harder for animals to withstand our colder months of the year, making warmer states like Florida a huge hotspot for invasive species. After thinking this all through, I made a few phone calls to national parks down south and got a hold of Alice Clark at Everglades National Park. She stated the population of Burmese pythons presently established in the park is the result of accidental or intentional release by pet owners. These introductions can have devastating consequences to our ecosystem. Burmese pythons have been found to feed on a wide variety of mammals and birds in the Everglades, even the occasional alligator. By preying on native wildlife and competing with other native predators, pythons are seriously impacting the natural order of South Florida's ecological communities. The continued proliferation of Burmese pythons and the continued introduction of new foreign species can further threaten many of the endangered plants and animals we're working diligently to protect. She went on to say that once they're here, it is really hard job to get them out. After interviewing these three specialists about the invasive species in the environment, one thing was certain: human contribution played a huge role in the problem of releasing animals. When pet owners were releasing pets unintentionally or they just so happened to get out of their cages, the real problem was what happened in years to come. After interviews and extensive research, it is no question that the exotic pet trade has an impact on the way humans buy animals and decide what to do with them once they are too big to handle anymore. What I found best about my methods of research were that each person I interviewed gave great feedback on how to properly get rid of an exotic pet and how these measures can greatly help us achieve better understanding on how just one error of releasing can cause a huge impact for the future. This remedy is to call a park before releasing them or call your nearest animal sanctuary. This documentary shows that not all is wrong in the exotic pet trade, but that if you are interested in buying an exotic pet, certain precautions and safety measures should always be taken when dealing with a wild animal during and after the process of owning them.